Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a monthly tarot reading for Virgo for February. And this is a general reading, and I'll be using my adaptation of a Celtic cross. If you're a regular subscriber to the channel, you may have noticed that I haven't been quite as active this month. And that's because my daughter arrived on January 23rd, last week. So it's been a little bit hectic. I may just do the monthly readings for a little while until things kind of settle down. But we'll have to see. But anyway, for Virgo, my fellow Virgos, let's see what's going on. Okay. Okay, interesting. All right. Current situation, you have the Seven of Swords, meaning that you may need to sort of get away with something, or you've in a way there's always something a little bit left behind that you got to get back to, and you're feeling like maybe a little bit anxious about it. There's a feeling like you are perhaps neglecting something or not being fair about something, and you've got to kind of be covert about it, or sneaky a little bit. What's crossing you here is this King of Swords in the reverse. So this is somebody who may be a little bit too intellectually cocky, or a know-it-all sometimes, but they can also be a little bit manipulative and cold. And this is what's crossing you. So this could be that it's been you that's being this way, but it also could be somebody in your environment who's been this way, who's kind of just getting on your nerves or becoming a problem for you. What's happening in the recent past, or what you're moving away from, is this Ten of Cups energy. So this is, happy emotional fulfillment. This is, the almost like the happily ever after type energy where everything has just worked perfectly. There's a lot of family and positive emotion going on here. Things are really great. Now you're moving away from that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're moving away from that happily ever after or whatever, but it does mean that your focus is shifting away from that. So you've been there, you've done that, so now it's time for you to start playing a little bit of a different game, or thinking about life in a little bit of a different way, right? What you're moving toward is the Queen of Coins in the reverse, and this is a little bit of a lack of nurturing. You may have felt that you've wanted to be a little bit more nurturing or something, but circumstances have dictated that you feel a little bit differently, or that you've got this sneakiness going on. So you may feel compelled to achieve some things under the radar or something like that, and you're not feeling necessarily proud about it or warm. So there's a little bit of a tendency to move toward this less saving and secure type of mentality into more of a risky and covert and less warm energy. I don't know how many times I said less warm, but that's where it goes. Now the foundation of the situation here, it's kind of like what's welling up in the subconscious that's presenting this whole thing for you, this whole scenario. What does it mean? What is it teaching you? And what you have is the Temperance. So Temperance means that sometimes you go through really difficult situations, or you go through tough times to turn you into a better person, to mold your character, or to just make you stronger. You know, the saying is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And temperance, when you temper a sword, you heat it up really hot and you bang it with a hammer. And it's a very stressful process, but what it does is it makes the sword a lot stronger. So this is kind of what you're going through. This is, a process where, think of it as a reward almost, even though it could be a struggle or it could be something hard to go through. Think of it as a reward, because what's happening is you're being equipped with the strength and the issues that you need to be able to get through, to have or to be the person you want to be. So a lot of people talk about, they pray to God for help. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Evan Almighty, but he put it a really good way. He said, when people pray to God for like money or something like that, do you think God just zaps money into their bank account, or does he give them an opportunity to make money? Right? If you pray for love, does he just zap you with warm feelings of love, or does he give you an opportunity to love? So, going after these things or desiring certain things, it's not that you're just going to get those things. What you're going to get is an opportunity to achieve it yourself. And a lot of people don't realize what they're wishing for. So, this is part of the process. This is something that you're given an opportunity to grow from. And that's a great thing. Now, what's on your crowning thoughts, your conscious mind, is this Four of Wands, which means it's like a happy home. And I, have a real, like a personal connection with this card, where I kind of have like a symbolism, and I don't know if anybody else has ever, put it this way. But my personal interpretation is that the Four of Wands represents the sort of 4 types of action that's necessary for like a happy home. And, one of them is you got to put energy or action into the home. You've got to wash the dishes, put maintenance in, that kind of thing. Do your laundry, work that goes into maintaining the home. Then there's work that goes in outside the home. So whether it be going to work and, earning money for your mortgage or your rent, or going out in the field to grow food, or, that kind of thing. But so there's got to be energy inside and outside the house. Then the third is that you've got to use the house as a place to rest. It has to be secure. It has to give you a place to recharge your battery, to enable all of that other action to actually happen. Otherwise, you're just going to always be pouring from an empty cup, so to speak. So you got to have rest. But then the fourth part, and this is unique to humans because animals seem to be content if they just have those other 3 things. If they have rest, if they have a happy place to live, and if they've got, something to eat, something to go out and forage for, they seem to be happy. But when humans get involved, there's a mind, and that mind has a tendency to need to be placated somehow. And the way that works with the context of a happy house is your home and your life need to be somewhat of a jumping off point to accomplish something that really means something to you, right? Nobody can give you the meaning of life, because in a way, living life is the meaning of life, right? You have to be able to find a way to just involve yourself in the world, to actually feel like you've done something, or to feel like you have a life that's accomplished. Otherwise, you're going to be left with this like gaping hole that you don't know how to fill. So you're going to have to be able to figure out how to make that meaning on your own, how to figure out what you want to do with your life. So there is that fourth aspect where all of that works. Those other 3 energies need to also be accompanied by some project or cause that is enabled by that happy, healthy home. And all of these things have to exist in a balance. If you're lacking any one of them, it's kind of like trying to make a house with 3 walls instead of 4. So all of these things have to kind of exist in a balance to have this happy, healthy home that you're after. And it's heavy on your mind. So I hope that kind of helps put it in perspective about how you achieve this, or figuring out what exactly is lacking. Now, what you have for your advice here is the Two of Swords in the reverse. So in the upright position, the Two of Swords represents like, not knowing which way to go, feeling like there's two conflicting ideas or directions that you could go down, but you don't really know which one to choose. And that comes from, ultimately just not being able to predict the future and all that. But in this case, your advice is to be decisive. Your advice is to not think about the choices so much, but instead to recognize when an action is required and to just do it, to not think about it, but do it. And that kind of like going back into this happy home here, if you do a little self-reflection and you feel like one of those particular types of energy is not working out, don't overthink what are you supposed to do to correct that balance. If you're like, well, I'm doing a self-assessment and I really don't put in enough work around the house. I don't put enough work into the house. Well, don't think too much about what you ought to do, but look around and ask yourself what could be done. Is there some laundry that needs to be done? Well, go do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Act without hesitation, right? And that's the advice for you here. And it's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid, and you may be getting over some tendencies within yourself by just not hesitating or thinking about it too much. Now, the environment is the Six of Coins. So around you there is definitely some dynamic here of, either somebody helping you or needing help from you or relying on you in some way. In my personal life as a Virgo, this is definitely somebody who's very dependent on me since I had my little baby girl. But, this has a dual meaning. This can also be that there are people around you who you are relying on. But one way or the other, there's that dynamic of having to rely on others, whether it be others relying on you or you relying on others. Okay. Now, your fears card, you have this Wheel of Fortune in the reverse. So I tend to think in this position, and another reading that I did had this card in the reverse for the fears, and I tend to take this as an indication of being afraid of like having some sort of bad luck or having fate not smile too kindly on you. And I've experienced that myself. Just hoping that my story is not one of tragedy. But it's kind of like a thing where the more you're trying to avoid certain ideas or certain aspects of life, the more it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so really it's better for you to just sort of not focus on the things that you don't want, right? If you follow the law of attraction, whatever you're focused on tends to be manifested in your life. So a lot of people go around and they are constantly thinking about what they don't want to happen. And they think that by focusing on what they don't want, they're sort of like preventing themselves from getting it, or they're preparing themselves in some way that would avoid that sort of sticky fate. But in reality, what happens is you're priming your subconscious to be looking for that, to be aiming for that. Because your subconscious is a funny thing. You can think of yourself, your mind, as being, two parts. There's the conscious mind, there's what you're thinking about all the time, and then there's the rest of you, which is not in your conscious control, but it acts kind of like a pre-programmed robot. And this is really easy to illustrate. Your heart is beating all the time on its own, and that's very much orchestrated by your nervous system. Your breath is orchestrated by your nervous system, but you have some ability to get in the way, right? Or to change the way those automated things are functioning. Most of the time you're breathing without thinking about it, but you can take control of that process. But what happens is if you take control of your breath and you start breathing intentionally instead of just letting your body handle it, you'll find very quickly that you're not good at it. It's not something that the intentional mind is designed to really do. You have the ability to do it so that you can do things like dive underwater or a lot of things that are very useful to do, or even calm down when you're feeling a little too anxious. You can sort of control your breath to make yourself calmer. But all the time, it would be awful. Think about it if you always had to breathe intentionally. Well, you couldn't even go to sleep without dying, right? So it's sometimes better to let these things handle themselves. But you can also hack the process, and you can figure out that whatever you're consciously focusing your attention on, you're simultaneously, you're kind of training your subconscious to be seeking that, whatever it is that you're focused on. And you know, that's a mechanical application of how the law of attraction works for those of you who need a more scientific viewpoint on it. But that's it, right? That's the scientific viewpoint, is that you have this whole subconscious or unconscious apparatus, this nervous system that's far, far more advanced than your mind is, and it's constantly learning from you or from your conscious mind. It's being primed and programmed by where you focus your attention. So you want to train it in a way that's working in your best interests and not constantly just kind of like a moth to flame seeking out things that you don't want or that are damaging to you. And that's sort of the scientific reason that having a positive mindset is actually a good idea. So your overall message here, or the overall outcome, you have the Queen of Wands in the reverse. And the Queen of Wands is, she's a nurturer. She's a pretty good gardener. She does things, but she has more of like an internalized atmosphere. So she's not really, she's outgoing and she's friendly, but she's not directing others or inspiring others to act. She's really all about just like doing well in the home. And in the reverse here, there's a little resistance to this. So if there's an imbalance that's occurring in the home here between those four energies we talked about, it kind of, to me, feels like it may be around maintenance in the home or putting energy into the home, because she has a way of internalizing that effort. And this being in the reverse means that it's very likely that maybe you're neglecting some of that. You're neglecting taking care of some of the things that need to be taken care of, or doing those things. You know, she's got a little cat here who needs some attention. So, and I know in my personal life, having the baby has shifted my priorities a little bit, and there's probably some things that I'm not quite paying as much attention as I would like. So that's a nice reminder for me, and hopefully it is for you as well. And that about does it for today's reading. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again very soon for the next reading, and we'll kind of see how this goes over this next month, and I'll get back to you. Thanks again, and see you next time.